it all fall.
Greetings, I'm 99, and when I'm not doing commentaries, I'm ripping off Dr. Wolfita's intro to videos. Pokemon's been getting some competition in gaming lately. Temtem's been touted as the Pokemon killer by those dissatisfied with Game Freak. I've watched Hero 2's playthroughs of the Nexomon games, and they look pretty fun, and Pal World is a very intriguing trailer. However, I remember back in the late 90s, when Pokemon's competition was Metabots and Monster Ranger, which have both faded into obscurity over here in the States. Yu-Gi-Oh! From what I hear is still going strong. And of course the subject of today's review, Digimon. Like I said in my review 2 years ago, Digimon was originally created to be a competitor with the Tamagotchi in Japan, and eventually got its own anime series. It was originally meant to end after the main villain Digimon was defeated, but it had gotten so popular by then that it just kept going and going. It got a sequel season called Adventure 02 in Japan, that revolved around the youngest of the original 8 Digidestined, PK and Kari, and three of their schoolmates, Davis, Cody, and Yoli, who became the new Digidestined when the digital world became threatened by someone calling himself the Digimon Emperor. Made in Japan by Toei Animation, and it was localized by Saban, and aired on Fox Kids. 4Kids released the Pokemon movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, in theaters on November 12, 1999. Wanting a piece of that theatrical release pie, Fox Kids released Digimon the movie on October 6th the following year. However, Pokemon had an actual feature-length film for theaters, whereas Digimon didn't. They just had 3 short films that didn't match up to the full runtime of a movie. The 3 films were Digimon Adventure, or War Game, and Hurricane Landing, / Transcendent Evolution, the Golden Digimentals. So, how would Saban compete with 4Kids? Take all 3 films, dub them, and match them all together, and try to create a cohesive narrative. The tool to do this would be the American Digidestined Willis, who the dub wants you to believe had some sort of connection to the original Digidestined, when really he has none in the original Japanese dub, and only appears in the 3rd film, where he is the central focus. Digidestined Kari also acts as narrator for the whole thing, when originally there was no narration, and the films trusted you to piece things together for yourself.
You should know that this Koromon isn't the one we became friends with later on.
Can't trust American kids to read the atmosphere of a film. Gotta hold their hands and spill everything out for them. Before we get to the actual film, let me just go with a poster for this movie. So if you watched any of the trailers, they always showed scenes from the 2nd act of the film. On the posters on the box art of the VHS tapes, they show off the 02 cast, who only appear in the movie in its 3rd act. There's also the outfits they wear when entering the digital world in the TV series. Spoilers. There's no scene in this movie where anyone goes to the digital world, so I'm guessing who just made the poster was just given reference sheets to the 02 designs of the characters or something. It's also rather confusing that we have the character Vemon with his partner Davis there, but also have Magnamon, who's an advanced form of Vemon, on full display in the poster. Not that I think you'd know that, since I remember this movie coming out before the resolution of the Digimon Emperor arc, where Magnamon debuted. So for a lot of kids over here in the States, this movie was his first appearance. Another bit of confusion here. This movie was the debut of the Digimon Terriermon, who in this movie is the partner of Willis. Unfortunately, Terriermon is not the Digimon that is standing alongside Willis. That would be its counterpart Lopmon. Terriermon just looks wrong, having this rather evil look to him, like he's one of the main antagonists of the film for whatever reason. His counterpart Lopmon, like I previously said, is right next to Willis, like it's his partner Digimon or something, and it's not. That role belongs to Terriermon. Lopmon doesn't even appear in the movie. So why are there 2 near identical Digimon on the poster? And why does one of them look evil? Did no one bother to look at the poster, go back to watch the movie the whole way through, and tell the artist, hey, you made a mistake here, and have them correct it? That's what it feels like happened. Lastly, we get panels of the original kid on either side of the poster. While they do appear in Act 1 and Act 2, here their 02 designs are used, but they don't appear in the 3rd act. of this movie, which is gonna be kind of funny when we get around to talking about that. Now, apparently someone did watch the movie the whole way through, because on the box cover for the VHS tapes, the pictures of the original 6 kids have been removed, and it's just the 02 cast here. Honestly, I have kind of been putting this off, because part of me really didn't want to go back to this movie after all these years. But I know the longer I wait, the more painful it's going to be when I actually do. So let's not waste any more time. Gotta pull off that band-aid.
This is it, DigiPals. In a few seconds, the doors will open for the best movie of all time. The Digimon movie.
Alright, I forgot. Before the movie actually begins, we get an Angela Anaconda short where titular character Angela Anaconda and her friends go into the movie theater to watch it themselves. I forget if this part was in actual theaters or just part of the VHS tapes, but if it was part of the theatrical release, then I really should apologize to my parents for making them sit through this when they took me to the movie. I was never a fan of Angela Anaconda when it was on Fox Kids or ABC Family. It was just something I remember watching to get into the shows I actually liked, like Donkey Kong Country, Watermelon, and Freaky Stories, which more cartoon reviewers should do videos on so I can die happy. The plot of this short is that Angela imagines herself battling her rival Nanette Manoir as a Digimon for taking the seats in front of her and intentionally blocking her view. That's the basic plot for most of these shorts, really. Nanette does something to piss Angela off. Angela imagines bad stuff happening to Nanette. The actual show took this fantasy sequence for an episode that renames the movie, but Angela still imagines herself becoming a giant Thai cosplayer. Alright, time for the actual movie.
The Digivolution is up and running. Did you see? Did you hear? Did you know what's coming? A Digi-Destiny starts today. Let me hear you say.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing that I can't decide which I have a hard time saying through without cringing. This or the Ho and Poker rap. As uncomfortable as this doubtlessly is for adults, I don't think I even liked this when I was a kid. It's trying to be hip while being simultaneously lazy by just flinging around Digimon PNGs across the screen. This is the kind of thing you'd expect to see on YouTube, not something meant for movie theaters. This is one of 8 original songs from the dub, even though I don't remember them playing it in the actual show, so it's almost like even Saban knew this was too cringe even for them. 5 of which can only be heard on the movie's soundtrack. Every other time the movie inserts music, it's a pre-existing song that kind of doesn't fit what's going on.
Hey, cut it out! Stop kissing my sister, you!
Now, I kind of knew the lyrics to the Rockefeller Skank when I was a kid, but that's only because I heard it so often. And I can only assume the only reason the editing team put this in was because they thought it was funny for some reason. Now, I do like 1 Week from the Bare Naked Ladies. All My Friends Are Metalheads is an okay song, and the impression that I get by the Mighty Boss Tones is fitting for the climax of Act 2, but I can't deny I'm still curious why the localization team chose these songs over the songs from the original Japanese dub. I know it's because the kids wouldn't understand Japanese, but they could have still used instrumental versions of the original Japanese anime. Hell, they could have used instrumental versions of the songs they did use if they were available at the time. So in Act 1, we're introduced to a much younger Tai and Kari, who get a Digi-Egg that comes out of their computer and hatches into a Butamon/Goramon, which eventually evolves into a Greymon that protects them from a Paramon attacking their neighborhood. This movie is notorious for a majority of cuts, so after watching Hensama, it feels like this film is the one that had the least, and most of them were for the sake of time, like shortening how long their cat chases Goramon around. Now we did lose a scene of the Greymon impaling Paramon with a chew in his horn. We did get the scene where Greymon pretty much obliterates one of Paramon's wings with his Nova Blast. So I'd call that a fair trade. Act 1 more or less keeps to the original narrative, but has quite a few corny jokes thanks to the localization. Act Act 2 takes place after the end of the original Digimon season. A viral Digimon named Caramon has appeared on the internet and is consuming so much data that it causes problems with the real world. So after the Digidestin's partners manage to make contact with Tai and Izzy, their mission is to send their Digimon into the internet and destroy it. Unfortunately, every other member of the original 8 are all doing their own thing and are unavailable. Mimi's on vacation, Joe's taking an exam, Kari's at a birthday party, and Sora isn't talking to Tai due to a subplot about an argument they had.
What happened? It was stupid. I gave her this really great hairpin for her birthday, and then she got all mad and said, "Oh, you don't like my hairstyle?" And I said, "Who could tell? You're always wearing a hat." And then she said, "So, now you don't like my hat, huh?" It's very confusing.
I mean, he isn't wrong when puberty hits you. This pretty much leaves Matt and his little brother TK as the only two available to help Tai and Izzy. The longer the battle goes on, Caramon, Digivolves into Inframon to fight Kabuterimon and Greymon, overpowering them because he jumped straight to the ultimate stage rather than be a champion like they originally thought, and he eventually becomes the Mega Level Diaboromon, who overpowers Tai's War Greymon and Matt's Metal Garudamon and leaves them for dead. The connection Tai and Matt have with their Digimon is so strong that the pair managed to physically enter the internet and revive their partners in an admittedly well done scene, and this causes their partners to merge into Omnimon, who effortlessly destroys the Diaboromon and its duplicate army. Act 2 is possibly the best act out of this movie, despite still having a ton of changes. We get the debut of some pretty awesome Digimon like the Caramon line, which, unlike previous enemy Digimon, which were either acting on instinct like wild animals, were evil simply for the sake of being evil, or were would-be interdimensional conquerors, the Caramon line considered the idea of destruction and annihilation hilarious. The Diaboromon causing a nuclear missile to be launched towards the Digidestin's neighborhood simply for the lulz. I'm just disappointed we didn't get to see Cresselimon, which is what I feel Metapod would look like if it got injected with Sonic XC juice. Then there's Omnimon, who is not only immensely powerful, but is basically also an iconic figure in the Digimon franchise. The scene where Diaboromon needs to be slowed down by incoming emails from kids all over the world is also canon to the anime, since we not only see a young Yuli in the montage, but the fight between Diaboromon and Omnimon is referenced in the anime. We also got the sequel movie Diaboromon's Revenge that reveals that the original Diaboromon somehow survived. I can't lie, I did like the subplot of Tai and Sora having a fight as a kid, and I kinda still like it as an adult due to it being shipping fuel. Stupid CO2 epilogue. That reminds me, I need to write that related angry letter about Ichigo not ending up with Rukia. What? I'm serious. Since the movie wants to pretend that Willis is more important than he actually is, Izzy mentioned that Willis contacted him and informed him about the unevolved Caramon, mentioning that despite being a grade schooler, he's some sort of child genius. And during the fight with Diaboromon, Willis messages Izzy again, blaming himself for all the trouble that's going on. In the original Japanese dubs, these scenes went to two unnamed characters, the second being a random kid telling them not to give up the fight. These scenes remind me of when 4Kids commissioned scenes with the dub of Pokemon Forever, which were just an exposition scene editing out Tracy because he was one of the most unpopular characters, and a pointless Team Rocket scene simply meant for padding. And now we come to Act 3, the part of this movie that a lot of people familiar with the original film say got the most butchered by localization. If the transcript from the Digimon Encyclopedia is to be believed, I certainly feel like I'm sharing that sentiment. You've probably noticed that until now, my review has been basic summary rather than recap. That's primarily because if I did do the recap thing with the prior two acts, I feel I would just be repeating what other reviewers before me have said. I feel Act 3 does deserve the recap treatment, because boy, is quite a bit different. So, when whenever a popular anime gets a movie, or 20, made, you'll always have to when you have to figure out where that movie fits in the show's continuity. And by have to, I mean the Dragon Ball and Pokemon communities have willingly driven themselves insane. This, I feel, takes place either after or during the Digimon Emperor arc. Leaning towards after, because I can't really see the three new Digidestined spending an entire carefree day at the beach while the Emperor is still at large. There's another reason I feel this way, but we'll get there. Our narrator, Kari, tells us she and TK were in New York visiting Mimi, but Mimi never shows up in the third act. Of the dub, anyway. In the original film, Mimi being abducted was more or less what sparked the conflict. Abducted by who? This hulking beast called Wendigomon.
Cocomon, this has to stop!
Oh, I'm sorry. This hulking beast called Cocomon. Yeah, this is the champion form taken by Lotmon, corrupted by anger and hatred called Wendigomon, loosely based on the creature of the same name. Not that you'd know that unless you collected the minifigures after the movie, because the dub insists on calling him by the name of his in training form the entire time. But yeah, I said this guy abducted Mimi. Why? We'll get there later. But in the dub, Wendigomon and Terriermon have a fight, and Willis runs off when he sees that TK and Kari have been watching him, due to Kari having followed a bad feeling she had. After some eavesdropping from Patamon, the pair then he's going to Colorado and call the other three kids for help. A few scenes later, Davis, Cody, and Yuli meet up with Willis by chance when they're hitching a ride in a truck and manage to befriend him and Terriermon. The kids decide to try and help Willis reach Colorado via more hitchhiking. Don't. The kids get separated. And this is where we get our second encounter with Wendigomon, who fights against Landromon, who's evolved from Vmon, and Gargomon, who evolves from Terriermon. Not much progress is made, really. Wendigomon just slaps around the evolved Digimon, and then just disappears. After that, Vmon digivolves into Ragermon, and Ragermon acts like a horse, allowing Davis, Willis, and Terriermon to ride him, and meets up with the other two Digidestined. Once reunited, the Digidestined demand to know who Wendigomon is, and why he seems to have a particular interest in Willis.
I created him.
Turns out, when Willis was just a little tyke, he received a Digi-Egg that hatched two Digimon, Gabimon and Cocomon. That's in line with the original film, where the dub says Willis also created Kiramon, and when Diaboromon's body was destroyed by Omnimon, his corrupted data appeared in the real world, and hunted down Cocomon, infecting him with the corrupted data, and causing Cocomon to become Wendigomon. You know, I would call bull on this, but we do learn that after Wizardmon had been killed by Mousmon, his data lingered around the real world as a ghost. Time for what actually happened in the original film. Cocomon was never infected by the virus that created Diaboromon. He was simply spirited away to a different dimension. The West was still small, and when he managed to return, he failed to recognize an older Willis and went nuts. Although this might have also been caused by that other dimension. This just so happened around the time the Greymon that befriended Kari defended them from Parrotmon. So, in a way, Willis does have a connection with the original 8 Digidestined, just not the one this movie would have you believe. In his unstable mind, and inability to understand that the humans age and grow up, Wendigomon has been seeking the Willis he knew, and abducting everyone with a Digivice he can find, and taking them to the dimension he was whisked away to. And at several points in the original film, he'd been doing this to 6 of the original 8 Digidestined. So yeah, the older kids do play a role in this film, and part of the conflict is the younger kids have to rescue them from being abducted, even though they had no leads up until this point. The dub decided just to focus on Willis trying to get back to Colorado, because he's been interpreting Wendigomon saying go back, as in go back to the place where he was infected by the virus. In short, a huge chunk of the conflict has been cut out just so Willis gets to be made special. Willis knows that the only way to end Wendigomon's suffering is to destroy him, but can't bring himself to do it until reassured that he isn't alone in this. So now we get the big climactic fight between the Digidestined and Wendigomon. Before the actual fight can begin, however, Wendigomon digivolves alternate Antitamon, which looks like a cross between a rabbit, a bat, and Slender Man. So rather than fight a reject from the labyrinth, they're now fighting a gymnastic chimera. During the fight, retrieved a runaround, one of the original songs from the dub whenever a fight is happening. I liked this song when I was a kid, but I have since found the original audio for this scene, and I can say it is far more fitting, especially here. Honestly, if the localization team wanted to dub over this scene, they could have chosen the music they use whenever a serious battle is happening, rather than the song that tells you they're winning a battle, when in reality, no one is even close to being Antitamon in this movie. In fact, Antitamon digivolves again into a corrupted form of Cherubimon, and now being a Mega, he just one-shots all the Digimon back into their rookie forms. Before Cherubimon can finish everyone off though, Antitamon and Angelomon come out of nowhere and lop off Cherubimon's arms. Last time we saw TK and Kari, they were on a train where supposedly everyone else on said train, including the conductor, had been transported to the same dimension when Digimon had taken the older kids to. So how did TK and Kari manage to get here? The only explanation I can think of is that Angemon and Angelomon brought them here, and that itself has issues I'll be getting to shortly. While Angemon and Angelwoman managed to land some devastating injuries to Cherubimon, he manages to heal himself, and I think he transports everyone to the same alternate dimension he's holding the other kids. I say think because we don't actually see them, but what would you call what he's doing here? And causes everyone to age backwards, turning them into children.
We don't have the strength to defeat him. The new Digimon will have to use the power of the golden Digi-Eggs.
Come on, we have to digivolve to our Mega Form so we can release the golden Digi-Egg!
Excuse me, what?
How did they know they could do that? I brought up in my review of his master's voice that Gatomon should be unable to digivolve into Angelomon because she gave up her ability to digivolve to her ultimate stage. So either whoever wrote that into the continuity of the anime and watched this movie, much less that episode I reviewed, or they just forgot that when a Digimon isn't in the presence of a control spire which prevents them from digivolving, they can take on a more powerful form. And this isn't just an issue with the dub, by the way. The original Japanese seems to suffer from the same plot hole. There's also the fact that neither of these characters would obtain their mega forms until the Toei movies and the 2020 reboot, so why Angemon would think they can go Mega here makes absolutely no sense. Remember what I said earlier about Magnamon? Magnamon is an alternate evolution of Vmon, born from the Golden Digi-Egg of Miracles, and that Digi-Egg had been acquired by the Digimon Emperor and used as a power source that allowed his base to fly. The Digi-Egg of Miracles, along with every other Digimetal that allows the new generation of Digidestined Digimon to armor Digivolve, had been created by 4 powerful Mega Digimon when the defenses of their world had begun to weaken. Angemon and Angelomon going Mega had nothing to do with their creation. So why did they think that obtaining their Mega forms would be able to summon it, and this Digi-Egg that is clearly meant for Terriermon? Really, the only conclusion I can come to is this is a Deus Ex Machina. Even though they're Megas now, I think Zero2 has never been clear on if Magnamon is a Mega or just some sort of armor level Digimon. They still manage to do little damage to Cherubimon, and in fact get eaten by him. Inside Cherubimon, however, they find a manifestation of Wendigomon who motions for them to destroy him from within. After they use their most powerful attacks, the pair manage to destroy the corruption from within Cherubimon. However, because Cherubimon had taken so much damage, his body fades away, leaving us to believe he's lost both of his partners until Terriermon and Vmon come parachuting down. Now hold on to your seats. There are 2 different endings to this movie. I know, shocker. In the dub, the kids talk about even though Cherubimon's body couldn't survive the battle, battle, Digimon never really die, and Willis is reunited with Wendigamon, who sings a Smash Mouth song. In the original film, we're simply told that the older kids were freed from the dimension Wendigamon was keeping them in, and Willis finds Kokomon's Digi-Egg. So that was Digimon's first movie. Wow, nice being able to sit through when I first decided to do this. I still can't say this is good, but there are things I still like about it even after all these years. The dub cast is alright. I did enjoy their chemistry between Joshua Seth and Mona Marshall as Ty and Izzy respectively in Act 2, and while Terriermon is sort of a flat character here, Mona would give him a bit more personality in Tamers. We got the debut of some new Digimon, which I am always in favor of as a Digimon fan. However, I still can't overlook what a mess this movie was. In order to pretend like there's some sort of connecting thread, they treat Willis like a narrative device rather than a character. Maybe it's just me, but if they really wanted a connection between Willis and the original 8 kids who would become Digidestined, the writers could have simply taken the plots from Act 1 and Act 3, like the original third film seemed to. Yeah, it would probably be a short movie, but at least there would have been a bit of story, and wouldn't have cut out so much of the source material. The movie isn't god-awful, but I really would have to be a kid who hasn't understood critically yet, or put on a pair of nostalgia glasses to get any enjoyment out of this. I'll say this much though, I was willing to sit through an hour of Saban cheese, more than all that needless thanks from the Try movies. This is Night Eye saying thanks for letting me share my thoughts. Please share yours with me.